You know, the Lord works. It's pretty awesome. The Lord put me on this journey. For me, I've struggled with my weight. I've done what the guidelines have said for my entire life. I played football, I wrestled, I did all these things. I weighed about 200 to play football, and I cut to 165 for wrestling. So as I continued to gain weight after college, high school, college, med school, and all that stuff, I thought, I'm doing all the right stuff. I'm working out. I don't sit on my butt like everyone says is a problem. I'm doing this, I'm doing all this stuff. So then I start learning from my patients, and I see a patient lose 40 pounds. This guy lost 6. What are you doing? Intermittent fasting. Oh, that's crazy. You're going to throw your body into starvation mode. And so then I had to go down that journey myself. Normal as my sugars, lost 45, 50 pounds, and all that stuff. But guys, we focus so much on the weight loss aspect of this, and everyone, that's the sexy term that everyone wants to know, but it's about health. It's about us getting our health back. The experts have been wrong for 50 years, and we've listened, and we've done the right thing, because all those docs think no one listens. And so that's how all this kind of comes on. Now, keto, you're going to, just like anything, when it gets popular, you're going to see all kinds of crazy stuff. Keto bars, keto this, keto. Get back to real food. Eat real food. Is this crazy stuff? So this is what our talk's about. So I want to go through some of this. And then the question becomes, can what we eat affect our Christian walk? Can it affect our lives, our marriages, and all these things? I think the answer is yes, based on the data and based on what I'm seeing. So I had to step back after practicing for 13 or 14 years at that point and say, look, my patients are getting sicker. I'm throwing more drugs, and we're getting into more problems. But before we get into the talk, I want to recognize someone here. It's payback time. Dr. Ariel Ortiz is here, and you guys, you're in the presence of greatness. Trust me, stand up for a second. And if anyone you know has had a lap band or a bariatric type surgery, this guy probably either trained the doctor or did the surgery. He's done over 22,000 bands and all this stuff. That shows you what a need there is. But this guy gets the medical part of it. He understands and wants to help his patient because we know, and I'm going to go through some of the data, and he's here for accountability because I could make up all kinds of stuff, and you guys will agree. And he'll go, no, that's not true, Brian.
I even have a
Oh, no. Dear Lord. So let me tell you a quick aside on this guy. We're at a huge medical conference. Gary Fettke, anyone who knows anything about low carb, he's a surgeon who said, look, I'm tired of cutting people's feet off. We could do nutritional. He got charged with inappropriately reversing diabetes because he went against what the guidelines said. And he saved all his patients from amputation. And he went through court. Anyways, this guy's speaking at this huge conference. Everyone's all ears. He's a very soft-spoken guy, unlike me. And so you're kind of trying to hear. And all of a sudden, in the back, I'm in the back standing there like these guys. And all of a sudden, my voice is going. I'm like, what the heck is that? And the head guy looks at me. He's doing audio and looks at me like, shut up. I'm like, I'm not talking. Look, I'm not talking. So this guy, the surgeon in the back, had my podcast, and it started playing super loud. And we're like, this is why we don't invite surgeons and stuff. They go crazy and try to sabotage us and make us look bad. But yeah, I want to talk about how the Lord has worked. This is what I'm going to try to go through this as quickly as these are my goals for the next 45 minutes or so. Convince you that nearly everything you've been told about nutrition is incorrect and is based on poor science. Make an argument that what you eat can affect all these things we're talking about: spiritual health, physical health, mental health. Get us to put down our donuts, cereal, orange juice, and pancakes. Make it out of here alive. And my peace offering is that you can eat steak, burger, chicken, fish, eggs, and bacon even. And no more rice cakes, no more Melba toast, guys. I've had my share and I'm done. So how can food be addictive? What is all this keto, low carb? What is keto? What is low carb? What does all this mean? Because it's crazy. We start talking these terms and no one really understands. Most people say the definition of ketogenic diet is less than 50 grams of carbs a day, carbohydrates. So looking at your food, seeing how many carbs. Most of us, once we do it for a while, you don't have to count macros and do all this crazy stuff. You just kind of learn. And so a ketogenic diet, by definition, is if you check your blood ketones, you're having ketones. That means you're burning fat as your fuel source, right, instead of sugar. So I could run on diesel, I could run on regular gas. So which fuel do you want to run on? If you're running on the short-term source, like sugar, you need to fuel up all the time. If you have diesel, you can run forever on a tank of gas. So that's what we're getting at. Do we want to run where we have to eat every 2 hours to survive like we've been told? Or do we want to say, hey, I could fast for 3 or 4 days and not even thinking about it? And we'll talk about that. Historically, a ketogenic diet classically has been used for seizure disorder, right? That is what it was described over 150 years ago or so. Still, 2/3 of people on a ketogenic diet can come off medications. If you listen to the podcast, one of the most powerful episodes is a lady who was having seizures for 40 years, And her doctor said, no, keto's too dangerous, don't do that. But what we can do is cut out part of your brain to stop the seizure. There's a 60% chance that'll help you. And she went home and goes, you know what? 40% chance it doesn't work and I'm gonna get my brain cut into? Let me try keto. At that time, she was 316 pounds, goes back to her doctor. 6 months later, they said, how many seizures? She was having intractable seizures. And her story's on the podcast, well worth listening to, because she said, I haven't had any. And the doctor laughed and said, no, seriously. She said, I had 0 seizures. She goes, medicine's working, finally good. She goes, I stopped the medicine. And the doctor got mad at her. He said, what, you're doing this crazy stuff. I mean, this is dangerous. Like, cutting into my brain isn't dangerous stuff. 3 years later, she's like 130 pounds from over 300 pounds. And I asked her, do you cheat? And she goes, of course not. I'm not going to get a seizure. So for her, it's very easy to stay compliant. So they say it's very difficult. And for seizure disorder, that's a high fat diet that a lot of these people say, I eat butter all day long. Look, guys, eating butter all day long is not the answer to your problems. Trust me on that, right? It's about not eating the carbohydrates. It's not about loading up on butter all day. So we do crazy stuff. And like I'd rather burn my love handles than butter that I'm eating all day. So you have to understand that. The big, huge thing is understanding insulin and glucagon. Insulin resistance, like right now, the number 1 cause of cirrhosis in the world is alcohol. Number 2, for the first time in the history of man. Number 1, fructose. Non-alcoholic, fatty liver disease. So we store extra fructose because you cannot use that as an energy source. It goes to your liver, stores as fat. Now when you get fatty liver, your insulin doesn't work. And Jason Fung does a great job of talking about this like a suitcase. Once your suitcase is full, and now your wife says, let me put my extra shoes in there, there's no room. So you can get all the guys in this room and try to jam those shoes in there. It's not going to fit, guys. So once your liver is full of fat, now you got a problem. Now you need more and more and more insulin to get that fat into there, right? So insulin resistance is a huge thing, and having high insulin, which is what we call hyperinsulinemia, is a major, major risk factor. I'm going to try to convince you guys of that based on the data. So his friend, Rob Sivas, who's one of the most brilliant guys I know, said the same thing. He said, Brian, you know what? We were never designed to have our sugars managed by insulin. It was always supposed to be glucagon. So let me give you guys a quick example of what I'm talking about. If I go home tonight and I have ice cream and cake and drink a Coke, my sugars go crazy. So insulin goes up and tries to get all that sugar out. That's its job. Insulin is a fat-storing hormone. So it's storing in all these places, liver. First place, glycogen. That's why exercise is important, because if you work out really hard, you can get away with a lot more. So what insulin does is throws it there, and it keeps going all night. Then the morning comes, and you have pancakes and syrup. Sugar goes up, insulin goes and takes that. As long as insulin's working, glucagon cannot work. It suppresses it. So let's give a different example. I go home tonight and have a steak and a salad. My sugars start dropping around 2 in the morning. My body says, look, you cannot have low sugars, glucagon, kick in. So bring that sugar back up to where we want it. So we're not going to get low sugars as a result of not eating sugar. Trust me. I've had a continuous glucose monitor, and I'll talk about it a little bit. If I fast all day, my sugar goes from 85 in the morning. It's a little higher today because I'm excited to talk to you guys. It's about 120 right now. All I've had is coffee and water, right? So stress, all these things can play a role in sugar metabolism. But the thing is, if I fast all day, by the end of the day, my sugar's 95, right? If I fast till the next morning and don't eat anything, it's 105. So my sugar goes up when I'm fasting. It does not go down. Because my liver is saying, glucagon, give this guy some nutrition, right? Kick it out. Now that same thing, if I go home that night and I eat a steak, what happens to my sugar level? Drops to about 77. Because now my body says, hey, he has food coming in. I don't need sugar coming from the liver all the time. Liver, you could relax a little bit. If I weren't in church, I'd tell you if I have a glass of wine, we'll drop my sugar down to 62. Because my body says that's a toxin. I got to get rid of that alcohol first, and then I can get to the sugar. So then my sugar drops. It stops making sugar for me because it's busy doing other stuff. It's distracted. And so there's study after study showing this. My biggest surprise has been the mental health. It's shocking to me that I see people coming in and go, yeah, I lost 80 pounds, but you know what? I don't yell at my wife anymore. I don't have my PTSD anymore. I don't struggle with depression when I wake up. I'm not constantly stressed out. I am calm and even. Why? Because we're not spiking our sugars up and down and doing all this crazy stuff anymore. Your hormones are flat. And part of that is why women have more trouble on a ketogenic diet or a low carb, because they have a lot more liver fat a lot of times, and it takes a while to burn through that liver fat to make your body insulin sensitive. So a skinny guy who's insulin sensitive, yes, he can eat donuts all day, and they go, look at him, he's fine, right? But I have 300, 500-pound guys who hardly eat anything, and it's hard to lose weight because they're super insulin resistant, so you cannot get to your fat stores. So when that insulin's high consistently, you can't get to your fat stores anymore. So you have to eat all the time because you're starving. You literally are starving. That's why we go and binge when we're hungry and we're trying to do a 500-calorie diet. That's why we've been struggling for years. Turo Kalasian, my partner, anyone who listens to the podcast, know he's the more outspoken New Yorker personality, but he's a brilliant guy, and he understands, and I'll show you a picture of who he is. This is Turo. Here he's on low-fat diet, here he's keto. That's him running his first 5K. Super good guy, and he understands, and he knows what it's like to be in the airplane and not be able to put a seatbelt on. He has to get the extender. And he knows what it's like to be discriminated against and made fun of. And the reason I picked him as my partner on the podcast is he was telling a story, and he said he was running on the treadmill. He looks like this now, right? He's running on the treadmill, and these guys behind him go, look at that fat guy here. Why is he even here? He's wasting his time. He's never going to lose weight. And he got shame and felt guilt, and he felt terrible about himself. And then he realized, they're not talking about me. They're talking about him, right? But that tells you, when you understand, most docs have never struggled like we've struggled. So it's hard to say, hey, yeah, just do what I did. I've been skinny my whole life, and this works for me, right? So Tro brought to my attention on Twitter publicly, hey, this is weird. 10 guys in my practice said they're no longer addiction to porn, all this stuff, and their erections are better, their testosterone is going up, they're having more sex with their wife, and they're feeling well. So he goes, Brian, what do you think? And I go, look, it's an interesting combination, Tro. It might have something to do with an addiction center in the brain. No one ever talks about this. There's tons of data now on this, but at that time we were hung out to dry, right? So it could be that their pornography addiction has to do the same thing with when you stimulate the carbohydrate area of the brain, they want more of that. Just like a lot of people who are struggling with pornography in this room, I'll go through the numbers, it's pretty devastating. But it didn't start out like that, all right? Just like when we eat a ton of food, it didn't start out like that. You need this, and that wasn't enough, so now I need a double-double, now I need a triple-double, now I need a quadruple-double, whatever, because you're not satisfied anymore with that start. You know, it was Playboy when I was a kid, right? And then all of a sudden it's this. Now you got hardcore radical stuff out there that we just desensitize. Same thing that's happening with our insulin is happening to our brains. So maybe they feel better about themselves, so they feel better. Their testosterone is good. Maybe their erectile dysfunction is better, and now they're more with their wife. But maybe it has to do with this addiction. They get stressed out and have a hard day at work. Pornography, right? And I'm telling you, this guy is unbelievable. It's a podcast well worth listening. Our most downloaded was his friend Rob Sivis. Until he comes on, then it's going to be way higher than that. And then Rob's going to get jealous, and he'll come back on. But that one, and number 13, this guy comes on, a Christian guy. I'm going to tell his story a little bit later, but I just want to let you know. But all these people, there was like hundreds of people say, you know what, I stopped drinking. I stopped this. I did this on a ketogenic or carnivore diet, which is a meat-only diet. And I'll talk about that a little bit. So are we exempt from all this stuff? I'm just going to run through this really quick in the sake of time. But look at these numbers, guys, and absorb. Well, it's going to be hard for you guys to do it that quick. I got guys. The women could have picked it all up pretty quickly. But the point of look at these numbers. 50% of all pastors, 68% of church-going men view porn regularly, right? We're joking if we don't think this is a problem. 53% of Promise Keeper guys said they watched porn the week before the survey. 56% of divorces at least have one part of them obsessive interest in porn. This is a massive problem. And me as a doc, it's not just about nutrition. It's about if you're going through a divorce and you're stressed out, guess how many medical problems you're going to have? Because your insulin's going through the roof because you're stressed out constantly, right? Porn industry, look at that, guys. More than the NFL, NBA, MLB combined. 42 million porn websites. That is unbelievably staggering. Plus, 100% of bariatric surgeons look at pornography regularly. No, I'm just talking. I'm just joking. I'm paying them back. I'm joking. Well, on the other side, I said, hey, we've been trying to get together because we met and we liked each other right away, and we had a kindred spirit. So I said, hey, it's kind of like my wife the first time. I knew she liked me for a long time. First time I asked her out, she said, I'm going to church that night. I'm like, I got bad information. So I asked him, hey, maybe Sunday morning I can go to Saturday night church. I'll ask him. He goes, I got too much church stuff. I didn't know he was a believer, too. He goes, I got too much church stuff on Sunday morning. That doesn't work. I'm like, he doesn't want it. And I said, I'm talking at a men's group. I never would have invited him unless he said he was serving at church. I wouldn't have said, hey, come to my church. I'm going to try to brainwash you, right? So the Lord works, and here he is. He's sugar addictive. His friend, Rob Siva, is my friend now, bariatric surgeon. He says, yes, sugar's addictive. On the podcast we got into, because we had a guy who was considering gastric bypass, and Rob's trying to talk him out of it. This is what he does for a living. He's not that smart of a guy. He's trying to help people instead of getting surgery, right? Takes money out of his. All these guys, that's what they have in common, by the way, is they take a pay cut to help you. They're not making a ton of money. No one wants to pay you to say cut sugar out. The sugar industry is not going to pay us, and pharmaceutical definitely is not going to pay us. So he says, Brian, sugar's not a food. So he's telling this guy, look, there's two foods you knew, fat and protein. And then he starts talking. I go, wait, Rob, step back. There's fat, protein, and carbohydrate. He goes, no, it's a food. It's a drug, not a food. said, what do you mean? He goes, is alcohol a food or a drug? It's considered a drug. Where does alcohol come from? Sugar. It's fermented sugar is all it is. So he made the argument, you could go your entire life without having carbohydrate, and you can survive just fine. The essential nutrients are fat and protein. If you lack one of those, you die. That's the bottom line. So can you go your entire life? It's hard to do, and you may be like tormented, but yes, it's possible. And I'll have some guys who are kind of proving that. He went through study after study. He goes, look, and here's the point he made that convinced me. He goes, look, Brian, if you go to an all-you-can-eat steakhouse and you fill up on steak and you're stuffed, all of us guys knows that feeling, you're stuffed, and they bring another steak, you look at it and go, I'm done, no more, I'm done, give it to someone else. But instead, they put your favorite dessert. You say, oh, I'll have a bite. Why? Because when you have a bite of that dessert, the whole thing is gone. The reason is you're getting that dopamine release in your brain. The studies after studies shows that. I'm going to run through those quickly for the sake of time. But again, kids go through withdrawal. When you take away their soda, they freak out. They have studies where they had them in, and they're like ripping the place apart trying to find sugar because they're addicted to this stuff. I'm telling you, it is an addiction. A friend of mine works at an Italian restaurant, one of the best in town, and he gained 36 pounds. He goes, Doc, I can't lose weight. I think I got something wrong with me. So I go through all of his food, and I go, you're eating pasta, bread, or rice. I can guarantee you what the problem is. And he goes, I don't eat that. I eat steak, I eat chicken, fish, healthy diet. Are you working out? Yeah, I work out this much. How about alcohol? I drink like 1 glass of wine a week. His family goes, he's crazy. He's not Italian. I don't know why. So it turns out, he goes, tell him what you drink, though. I said, what do you drink? Coke. How many? I don't know. I put it on the bar, and the bartender keeps filling it up all day long. So I go, quit the Coke. He goes, what am I going to do? I'm going to die. Have some unsweetened iced tea. See what happens. 36 pounds in 6 weeks. 36 pounds in 6 weeks. So you think soda doesn't have an impact? That's all he changed, right? That's why Dr. Ortiz, I've been to Central America so many times. We see the same thing. Wherever you have, if I'm out in the country, we don't take insulin meds, diabetes meds. Why? They don't have access. They're killing a chicken eating it. They're either eating their vegetables and fruit or whatever they grow, but they're not eating McDonald's. In the city, massive obesity and diabetes. No one's fat in the country. How many chickens do you have to eat to get fat? It's super impossible, right? I mean, how much chicken? You get sick of it. You go, I'm stuffed. You don't get that addiction part of it. So that's the thing we're talking about. Again, prison studies, you cut out sugar, violence goes down. Kids who drink soda, 60 times more likely to be obese and to be more violent. So you tell me food, and as a matter of fact, what happened during that discussion, this pediatrician in England who hates low carb went after me. He goes, you should have your license revoked for even talking about this. And I said, hey, look, you've never talked to a parent that at the end of the day at Disneyland, the kid's having a major meltdown because they've been on sugar high and they're sleep exhausted, right? You've never had someone say, I need an extra drink tonight because I had a stressful day. Never heard anyone say, I need a cup of coffee to get going this morning, right? It definitely has it. You eat like 100 jalapenos and see how your mood is. Trust me, you're not going to be very happy, right? One of those ghost peppers or whatever. And in the news recently, a lady, she went to the restaurant, she wanted a chocolate shake, they were out, and she broke all of it. She took a bat and smashed it on all their windows, and that's not an addiction or some other kind of issues, right? It's kind of crazy. Is it addictive? These are some studies. I just grabbed a couple. You could look at it. They're saying, look, it's more like it's a substitute, and it's a sweet drug, and it can't be substitute for addictive drugs, but it's even more rewarding and attractive. We have stuff where mice are hooked on cocaine, and then they put them in, they go, okay, you can have cocaine water or sugar water. Guess what they pick? Like 90% of the time, sugar water over cocaine water. They're already addicted to cocaine. Guess what? That's an addiction. And Rob is 100% right. Plus, he's bigger than me, so I always agree with him. But let me tell you about Rob. Rob Seif is the surgeon who's talking about sugar being an addiction. To make his point, after we went through a lot of stuff, he says, Brian, I go, why are you so hardcore on this addiction part? Because I wasn't sold. And he goes, look, I lost 100 pounds doing low-carb keto. 100 pounds as a gastric bypass surgeon who was obese, and now he loses 100 pounds. Guess what? 3 times during his journey, he gained back 30 pounds. Why? He goes, I was like, oh my gosh, you look great. Let's go get pizza and beer. Okay, cool. Next morning, we said, gosh, I feel like some cereal this morning, right? For 30 days, he goes off the rails because he goes, I am a stinking addict. I am an addict to carbs, right? I've never really had that kind of an addiction, but he goes, look, if there's ice cream in my freezer, I will find it. You could padlock my closets, and if there's food in there in the pantry, I'm going to break it at 2 in the morning and eat the dang stuff because it is an addiction. And that's why you're so adamant about this. Until we treat it that way, we are going to have a major disaster situation. So look what Dr. Ortiz does to all these people. Divorce rate, 75 to 85% at 2 years after a gastric bypass surgery. At 5 years. Increased alcohol, tobacco, shopping, pornography, extramarital affairs, depression, after a gastric bypass. You have a 500-pound person. Now you're giving them hope to have a good life, and they turn into a total train wreck? Why? Because we took care of the drug of choice, which is ice cream. They get mad at you because you guys are being bad husbands, and they go and say, you know what, I need some ice cream tonight, that's it. I need a Coke, I need this to calm my nerves. I'm stressed out, give me a donut, give me a power bar, give me whatever it is. Because we get stressed and we eat. So to say there's no association, I think you're dead wrong. Now, there had to be some, you don't get 500 pounds unless there's some dysfunction. Like at some point you go, okay, my pants keep going up in size. At some point most of us go, man, been did it a little too much during the holidays, let me kind of step back and take a look at this, right? Or you're in total denial. So what's the underlying problem? This is astounding. This number, when you look at South Pacific Islands, when they had their traditional diet, the incidence of schizophrenia, which is a horrible disease process, was 1 in 30,000. Then it went to 1 in 500 after they introduced processed foods. Do you think there might be some kind of a connection with that? Pediatrician who says we're nuts and should have our license revoked? Who needs to have their license revoked when you look at this number? One of the craziest ones we had so far was a guy named Chris Palmer, who is treating people with schizophrenia with a ketogenic diet. Because he says, look, the treatment that we give these people are all seizure medicines. Seizures get better on ketogenic diet, and they're all morbidly obese because of the medicines we're giving them. Maybe we should try diet. And listen to the podcast. It's well worth your time because I was blown away. He just published a case report of all these people doing better with a dietary change. He started out just eating sugar and candy, and now all of a sudden he's eating healthy food, and plus he lost 180 pounds, but that's just a side note to let you guys know about. Increasing homicide, all these things, right? The impact is astounding. I could go through study after study, and we could be here for 4 hours, and I could show them to you. So again, serotonin, it's a huge deal. We put you on antidepressants, all this stuff. There's a ton to learn about gut microbiome, but there's a ton of studies showing that the more sugar you eat, the more this gets messed up, and you mess up your serotonin production. This is one I just want to take a second to look at, but brain-derived natriuretic factor associated with schizophrenia, dementia, and Alzheimer's disease. All are associated with sugar, right? If you Google, don't take my word for it, Google type 3 diabetes, Alzheimer's disease, insulin resistance in the brain, just like your liver. Now your brain doesn't work right. Guess what your brain can run on also? Ketones. Everyone said, well, you have to have so many carbs or your brain will shut down, right? I could go on, everyone in church can fast for a week, and your brain's not going to shut down, and your body's not going to malfunction. Clinical depression associated with 30% increase in inflammation in the brain. We're talking about inflammation also, and that's a major factor in cardiovascular disease. If you have inflamed vessels, you are in trouble. And I can go through a lot of studies at the end if people have questions, because I don't want to go through it in detail with everyone and make you guys be hostage for a while, but very interesting. There was one study they did with Celebrex. People on Celebrex did better from a mood standpoint than people not on Celebrex. And they said, well, it's not a mood medicine, it's anti-inflammatory. It doesn't make any sense. So they said, well, because they're in less pain, they're happier, they can go play with their grandkids. Well, guess what? They control for pain level. Your pain level is 7, I'm 7. You're on Celebrex, your mood's better. I could do it with diet. I don't need Celebrex to do that. Carnivore Cruise, I started to tell you guys about bipolar, abusive dad, worship leader. Watch out for those guys. They're like the surgeon guys. I mean, they're right up there with them. Abusive dad goes home. What does he drown his sorrow in? Food. He goes in his room, locks the door, eats cake, ice cream, does whatever. He wanted to be in the school play, and the guy's like, look, we're not going to have a 300-pound Romeo. It ain't going to work, guys. So he loses weight, starves himself, does all this stuff, works out like crazy, gets a school play, does this. Then he goes to college, turns to pornography for the first time in his life. Food wasn't so much of an addiction, pornography becomes. It's episode number 13, well worth your time, especially if you struggle with addiction. Listen to this guy who had the courage to come out and talk about this. So he goes to pornography. Meets his wife, and he says, I got issues, lady, like all of us. Right? He laid it out. He goes, this is the worst dating advice, but I told her, look, here's my issue. I struggle with pornography. I struggle with this. I struggle with that. She goes, look, I got issues too. Let's make this work. Loving wife, very kind, and goes through issues. Turns to alcohol because he has work stress. He's an engineer, very smart guy, but he becomes addicted to alcohol. And I go, well, did alcohol replace your porn? No, I just added to my tool belt. And now I'm addicted to alcohol because I get stressed out. I had 1 drink a week, and then all of a sudden it was 2 drinks a week, and then it was 3 drinks a night. That's how addiction happens, guys. So some of us struggling with alcohol, guess what? You're giving yourself fatty liver disease, you're messing up your mood, you're causing all kinds of problems. And it's not about being legalistic, it's what the facts are. That's just what the risk is. So he moves to Detroit and says, look, his wife's back in Oregon, he's in Detroit, he hasn't gone more than 3 days. And by the way, he's going to support groups, getting prayed for. He is a serious Christian. He goes, I feel like dirt because I cannot give this stupid addiction up. What is wrong with me? So he goes, He goes there, and he wasn't even thinking about the addiction stuff. He goes, I'm just going to try to, he was gaining weight again. He goes, I'm going to try to lose weight. So he ends up ultimately going carnivore, which is a meat-only diet. And 3 weeks later, he's sitting at the computer and thought, I haven't looked at pornography in 3 weeks, and I have not had one drink. And his wife was very supportive. He goes, this doesn't make any sense. So he's freaked out. He goes, maybe the Lord worked, maybe this, maybe that. But what he says, what I do know is that those things are not a draw to me anymore. He goes, this is a miracle that this happened. After years and years of support group and prayer and all that stuff, and he fell off the wagon all the time. Lost his desire, gone. Tough association, okay, good. So with smoking, people quit smoking. They go, oh my gosh, I was doing so great. And then my buddies took me out for some alcohol, and I said, you know what, I'm going to light up a cigarette and just have one. Just one. Then guess what? Rob Seifert says that first one is the most dangerous one, because once you do it, you're going down that path again. Oh, I have coffee. Oh, man, if I have a coffee with the guys, I need a cigarette, right? So then they go off the wagon. Tough associations. Again, when you quit smoking, what do? You gain 15 pounds on average. Why? Because now you don't get that dopamine release you're getting from tobacco. Now you turn to suckers. Now you turn to gummy bears. Now you turn to all these things that give you that same dopamine release because you cannot have the drug of choice. It's no different than the gastric bypass person now who can't have their drug of choice. Now they're going to pornography, other things to fill that need that they have. So it's the underlying emptiness and depression, all that stuff. Now you've gained 15 pounds and you feel miserable. So this is what people think a keto diet or a low-carb diet is. Keto is just the extreme of low carb. When I say low carb, I say, look, cut out bread, cut out the low-hanging fruit juice, all that kind of stuff as much as possible if you're metabolically sick. And we'll talk a little bit more about that. But point is, this is what everyone thinks. They're like, oh my gosh, that's super dangerous. Because that's crazy. You're going to take saturated fat, you're going to be dead. These two guys, which one of these athletes, Zach Bitter, don't get excited, Kevin. I can see Kevin standing up and he's Zach Bitter, who I just interviewed on the podcast. Another nutty guy, Sean Baker. Which of these guys is a keto guy? Both. This guy just broke the world record, ran 105 miles in world record time. He ran 100 miles, and they said, you broke the record by 10 minutes. Keto guy. He carb loads for a race, but guess what? He runs fasted all the time. He can run 26, 30 miles fasted. That's his job. That's what he does just for fun. He's crazy, but a super nice guy and super smart. But keto. This guy, I'll talk a little bit about him next. Rowing champion of the world, and he's like 58 years old, and he's carnivore. All he eats is meat. And I'm like, this guy's nuts. Just wait till his heart studies come back. Well, this isn't a love story, guys. Don't worry. But look at his size compared to mine, and you see what he eats. That's his food pyramid. It's a little different than ours. Meat. That's his food pyramid. That's it. So I asked him, I go, hey, Sean, first of all, when I met him, I go, hey, if I ever say anything publicly to offend you or make you feel bad or make you upset with me, I apologize now. Please accept my apology for the rest of our life. Because he could outrun me. He's a beast, and all he eats is meat. So I go, okay, that's nice. But when his coronary calcium score comes back, he's a deadlift champion, indoor rowing champion. Coronary calcium score is 0. It means you get a CAT scan looking at a heart vessel, 0. This guy eats meat all day. If meat causes heart disease, this guy should have been dead years ago. And I said, why don't you eat vegetables? He goes, I don't like them. Why don't you eat fruit? I get fat when I eat fruit. Okay, right? Why am I going to argue with this guy? Push him. I'm not going to argue with this guy about anything. He eats only meat. Again, 2013, the American Heart Association quietly eliminated all caps, all limits on cholesterol intake. Why? Because they had no data. How many times have you seen that on the news? How about this? 2015, USDA nutrition guidelines dropped all caps on cholesterol intake. They said, no limit. But always say, oh, saturated fat's going to kill you. That's not what all these governing bodies are saying. Of course not. They did it quietly, because guess how many people are going to be super upset? Now, I'm going to let these guys run this quick video. This is a trailer of a movie coming out. We can go to the next slide, too. I sat right there and watched 5 of my, they go, hey, we want 5 of your patients that came off insulin. We want to interview them. See, I'm emotional still. It's crazy. Plus, my dog died yesterday, and that's a big deal, too. But the Holy Spirit has come from me and my family, amazingly. So, sitting right there, and they're like, Doc, shut up. We're going to interview your people. Just sit back there, and you can observe. So I'm observing. I see 5 of my patients who've come off insulin, who've lost 60 pounds, 80 pounds. And the first lady gets up there and says, you know, I lost all this weight. I reversed my diabetes. I came off my blood pressure medicines, but my depression, gone. She goes, I was in a fog my entire life. I never met my neighbors. I never went for walks. I never cleaned my house. And doctor says, you have to cut your carbohydrate intake. She said, 2 or 3 weeks in, gone. I walked into the sunlight. I saw the sun. I was happy. I'm not stressed. I go make dinner for my neighbors. I'm going walking. I'm doing all this stuff. She tells this story. I'm thinking, oh my gosh, I'm starting to get teared up. The guy next to her says, oh my gosh, me too. Other one, me too, me too, me too, me too. Every single one of them said their mood, depression, anxiety got better on a low-carb diet. Now you want me to say it doesn't? I'm not going to argue with my patients. And there's tons of people out there saying the same thing. This is a scary one. Dr. Ortiz and I talked about it. Only 12% of Americans, based on this study they just did, are metabolically healthy. That means that's this guy, right, or Kevin Miller. He's the only one that can get out of this room probably, right? But what about Steve? Yeah, Steve too. Yeah, Steve now too, right? But it's like, hey, look, guys, 88% of us are sick. Doesn't matter if you're fat, skinny, and I'm telling you, these guys will tell you, because we talk about risk of surgery, and I'll show you some people at major risk. So these are all keto foods, guys. You eat some eggs. You have choline, helps prevent against depression, anxiety, stress, dementia. You eat some vegetables if you want to. If you're allergic to them, then don't eat them, right? So you figure out, if you want, instead of chips, have some macadamia nuts. Figure it out. Rob Seifus, who another time he made me upset, he goes, Brian, and this is something critical for people here. He goes, Brian, snacking is always an emotional event. Your body does not need a snack. You will not die. You will not go into starvation. I could tell you, the darn guy was right, because I can look at my body and go, I'm kind of hungry. Oh, my sugar's totally normal. My sugar's 100. Do I need a snack? No, my sugar's fine. What do I need a snack for right now, right? When you start understanding the power of this stuff, you start realizing it. So this is like a standard diet, right? This is what we eat. And so we're saying this. Okay, let's get rid of the french fries. Let's get rid of the bread. Now it's a crazy, dangerous diet now, because you're eating real food. Give me a stinking break. Like our grandparents and parents and all these people, I could tell you story after story. A person says, I just ate like my grandma and I lost all this weight and my diabetes reversed. Yeah, because you're not eating all the processed garbage that we know is a problem, guys. And so it's not a radical talk. So a calorie is a calorie. We've heard this over and over. So 2,400 calories, how many of us couldn't watch a football game or watch a movie and eat a bag of chips and then go out to dinner afterwards, right? Say you only eat half the bag, so say this. If I give you an 8-ounce ribeye steak or that bag of chips, which one's going to fill you up more? The steak is. But in order to get the calories right, here's how many steaks you have to eat. So you're going to tell me, oh, yeah, that's normal. If you eat a bag of chips, you go, oh, that's funny, that's cool. But if you eat 6 ribeyes, people are going to go, oh, my gosh, guess what Sean Baker eats? 6 ribeyes, 2,400 calories. This guy's a beast, and he's still alive. But he wouldn't have the green stuff. He would freak out if he saw that green stuff on top of it. But the point is, look, guys, we've been tricking ourselves. We've been totally, and guess who's making money off this, right? It's right there on the bag. These guys want you to be addicted. You can't eat just one. They tell you up front, and we warned you. We told you can't eat just one. You're going to eat the whole stinking bag, right? But if you ate that ribeye, you were not going out to dinner with your wife after that. So take this to the bank. Is all about satiety, not calories. The calories theory has been wrong because I could eat 5 bags of those chips and take in 10,000 calories. I cannot eat that many ribeyes. I don't eat 5 ribeyes. I eat half a ribeye and share it with my wife, right? You don't have to load up on fat. If you're not hungry, don't eat it. But if you're starving, fill up on that. But what about the dangers of red meat, Doc? Breaking news, thank you, Lord, that we delayed this talk by a week. Look, most rigorous study ever conducted on the evidence for and against the health impacts of red meat published today. Findings: no compelling evidence that reducing consumption of red or processed meats, which I'm not a big fan of anyways, will be beneficial to an individual. It's not going to help you guys. This is ground shaking. How many people have heard of this, right? 100 studies with 6 million plus participants, right? Now, I'm not saying to go and eat meat for every meal. I'm not saying that. But what I'm saying is, like, guys, that's all we talk about. They go, if you eat red meat, you're going to die. Well, based on what? What are you basing that on other than what your mom told you or your friend told you? Come on. So people wonder why I get passionate about it. The reason I get passionate about it, because I've seen legs amputated. I have a 50-year-old who never listened, and he's in a wheelchair, dialysis 3 times a week, 50 years old. Because he says, Doc, these ring in my ears every day when you said, look, he said, I can't give up chips and I can't give up soda. I said, you're going to give up your ability to walk someday, and you're going to give up your vision. Is it worth it? And he says, you know what, now it's too late. He said, I felt fine, so I didn't worry, because my endocrinologist said, eat whatever you want, and I'm going to shoot up some more insulin for you, and we'll get your sugars under control. We all know now that, from what I said, you shoot up more insulin, you shove it more into your fat stores, liver, you get sicker. Experts, these are what the experts have told us. And I was just, how God works, right? I was on a Sirius XM radio show. I filled in for a friend of mine. They go, we want to talk about fasting. But the whole time she was saying fasting causes eating disorders, she was like brutal, making all these points. These are the talking points. I could tell you what they are. Look, Doc, breakfast is the most important meal of the day. Who said that? Kellogg's. What are they selling? Cereal, right? So eat 6 small meals throughout the day. You got to keep your metabolism running. I can 100% tell you that is inaccurate. As a matter of fact, well, I'll go through all this stuff one by one. Eat healthy whole wheat. Healthy whole wheat. What the heck is that if you're diabetic? You're spiking your sugars like crazy. And I have a handout for you guys with Dr. Unwin, who has reversed more cases of diabetes than we could ever imagine because he cut out healthy whole wheat oatmeal with honey and with bananas. And when you see how much sugar is in those things, 21 scoops of sugar in the ADA's recommended diet. And then I give you insulin to get rid of those 21 scoops of sugar. How about if you don't eat those sugar? You don't need insulin to get rid of that sugar that's not there, right? If you don't eat breakfast, you're not shooting insulin for that, guys. Eat bananas. Sweeten everything with bananas. Use vegetable oil. Stay away from meat, red animal products. Here, have margarine. Guess what? Look it up yourself. Cardiac risk for margarine versus butter. It is a slam dunk. Butter every day of the week compared to that. And I'm not saying to put butter on all your food. I'm just saying, look, if you have a choice between the two, if you have a choice of never eating soy, trust me, I don't eat soy at all. And I do not touch soybean oil, corn oil, safflower. All those are not natural for your body. And it raises omega-6, which is a huge pro-inflammatory, causing atherosclerosis and fatty liver disease. And we're in a disaster. Why? Because processed foods have all that stuff in it. But you just don't see it because it's in a nice package, right? A calorie is a calorie. We already went through that. Calorie is not a calorie. Your body is not going to respond to 100 calories of gummy bears the same as 100 calories of salmon. Anyone knows that, right? Remember, the same people told they eat trans fat. Get the other stuff out. You don't want the animal. Trans fat is a vegetable, right? And it was killing it when they go, oh, this isn't good. Let's quietly just kind of start taking that out of our Oreos and all that kind of stuff. So this is what I say to the experts. You're wrong on every front. Why? Because I have a 24-hour glucose monitor. Is breakfast the most important meal of the day? I haven't had breakfast now, and my sugars are up. My sugars don't drop. My metabolic rate does not drop if I skip breakfast. I just interviewed someone on the podcast, Kirsty Woods, and she has people that they measure their metabolic rate, and then they do different dietary interventions and follow their metabolic rate. How many calories are you burning? I was like, what happens if someone goes keto? Metabolic rate goes up or stays the same? Stay up or stays the same? Everyone says, oh, it's going to kill your metabolic. Not true. I said, what happens if someone fasts for 3 days? What happens? And these are the implications for the church, guys, by the way. If you fast for 3 days, your metabolic rate either stays the same or goes up. But she asked me a question first, which was really important. Is the person fat adapted? Can you run on fat, or are you insulin and sugar dependent? Because if you are, it's going to be brutal to fast for 3 days in the first place. But she says it doesn't change. So you're telling me, based on the data, she goes, I look at the data, not my opinion or anyone's opinion. You look at the data, and the data shows their metabolic rate does not drop in 3 days. So if you skip breakfast or lunch one day, you're not going to die. Trust me, I was at my desk shoving food down. I'm like, oh, it's lunch. I got to eat something or my metabolic rate's going to shut down. Not true. It's not about metabolic rate necessarily. It's about the insulin and glucagon ratio. And I'm going to impress that on you guys here. So look, guys, exercise. Exercise increases nitric oxide in your blood vessels. I could give you an hour talk on, but otherwise I'll steer you to a podcast to listen to by a friend of mine, Ivor Cummins, who I stole a couple of his slides because I want to impress you guys with that. But exercise is protective for heart disease. So exercise, guys. And if you decide, look, I'm not listening to anything he says, exercise, get active, do something. But that being said, you are not going to get skinny exercising and eating a terrible diet. 90% of it is going to be diet, but exercise has some benefits that if people want to stay afterwards, I could tell you it's unbelievable. Stay busy, distracted. If you're busy and distracted, it's easy for me to fast during the week. Mondays, I'm busy. I don't have time to eat, so I just don't eat. No big deal. I haven't died yet. Find a hobby, do stuff, deal with stress, focus on sleep. Sleep is a massive issue, right? If you're not sleeping, you're spiking your insulin, you're putting yourself in a major cardiovascular risk, and you're going to be grumpy, and your wife's not going to want to deal with you. Because we know we get in fights with our wives, and then the next morning you wake up and that was kind of dumb. Why was I such a jerk? Well, you were probably hungry and tired and coming off your sugar high, right? And the unthinkable for us guys, have accountability. Have a guy go, look, man, I'm struggling. Can you help me? Because me as a doc, I can't do it. I can't go to your house and say, don't eat the donuts, don't do this, don't do that. You have to have accountability with someone. Go, hey, look, study after study is showing if you have accountability, you do better. Dr. Ortiz has he's revolutionizing medicine. This is what I've been saying. Say, look, he can check in with his patients after a surgery and say, okay, day 3, here's what you expect, day 5, and they could look at their phone and see what it is. They could check in. Look, your weight's going up a little bit. What's happening? Oh, my husband left me and I'm stressed out. Guess what? 100% of the time when you go off your diet, it's because of stress. It's because of stress. So people get stressed out and they go, oh, I need something, give me that, right? To feel that dopamine. Prayer and fasting. Know your triggers. Don't play with fire, guys. If you're an addict to Coca-Cola, don't have it in your stinking house. Get rid of it. Just like I would tell you if you're an alcoholic. Do I say, hey, you have a bunch of Jack Daniels in your refrigerator? I mean, it doesn't make any sense, guys. Well, fasting and prayer. These are for the sake of time, I was going to run through. But the Lord speaks on fasting and prayer. Why am I giving this talk? What does this have to do with the church? Here's the deal. If I'm fat adapted, my body's running on fat, I could fast. I could fast while I'm even thinking of it. If you guys said, Brian, no food today, I'm like, okay, I don't even stress out. Because I'm looking at my sugars. My sugar stays steady or goes up when I'm fasting. So what's the power of this in the church? If guys are fat adapted, like Rich here, stand up real quick, man. This guy's killing it with low carb too, man. He's a fireman who's protecting us. He goes for hikes and does all this stuff fast, and he's changed his life. He's feeling great. He's put on muscle mass. You're not going to lose muscle mass by not eating sugar. Trust me on that. So, but the point is when you're fat adapted, fasting in the church, and I've always, whenever I fast, I was like, okay, Lord, I'm giving up food. Give me what I want. I'm sacrificing for you, so you owe me now. Now it's like, hey, Lord, let me draw close to you. Let me feel your holy presence. Because I'm not worried about what I'm going to eat in 2 hours, that I'm stressed out, that I'm going to shut my metabolic rate. Trust me on that. You're not going to shut your metabolic rate down. There's no study that shows that in a short-term fast. Now, long-term fast, I'm not a big fan of 40-day fast and all this stuff from a physiologic standpoint. From a spiritual standpoint, I'm not going to argue with you. Count your blessings. Wake up, count your blessings. Be in a good mood. Do your devos. All these kinds of things. You put on your armor for the day because you're going to be under attack, right? Guys, we're all under attack. So I'm going to show you a couple of stories. This guy, Larry, the reason I like, except his ugly UCLA hat, we don't look at that. But this guy has struggled with weight his entire life. He starts doing low-carb keto, and his wife goes, yeah, here we go, another trend. He's going to do it for 2 weeks and be done. The guy sticks with it. She was obese also, by the way. And their daughter had metabolic syndrome. Look at that. Look at her now. Nothing, right? He changed the course of his family because his wife said, I'm not doing this. He goes, okay, I'll do it by myself. So many of us go, oh, my wife won't do it, so I'm not doing it. Suck it up, guys. Seriously, it's your health. And if you're going to be there for your wife and your kids, you want to be healthy. So don't blame it on everyone. Take personal responsibility. I'm a huge believer because they go, hey, Brian, you're taking personal responsibility. I'm giving you way more because now you know what the problem is. Before, we gave you bad advice. We should eat 5 times a day and eat all bread, healthy whole wheat. I just talked to one of the top nutritionists in the world. And I said, if I give up oatmeal and healthy whole wheat, what nutritional deficiencies will I have? And she was laughing. She said, 0. Maybe fiber if you don't eat vegetables. You're going to get way more fiber from vegetables. So bread, she says, is a food delivery device. It's just a habit for us. You don't need to have bread. No one's ever, have you heard of anyone dying from a bread deficiency disorder or anything like that? It just doesn't happen. But she said, and I said, what happens to my cardiovascular risk if I stop all these heart-healthy things? She goes, you know as well as I do, this is a marketing ploy, guys. They're saying eating healthy whole wheat or oatmeal is better than eating donuts for breakfast. I'm not arguing with you, but that's a stupid thing to say. If you eat this, you're going to be healthier. That is absolutely incorrect. So I said, as a head nutritionist, what do you eat? Cereal. She goes, not cereal ever. She goes, I did it with cereal. She goes, and she has it posted online, what her sugars did with the ADA diet. It's a joke. The blessing is the head of the ADA is type 2 diabetic now. She has a continuous glucose monitor, and she's turning low carb, right? The head of the, and quietly, you guys don't know this, but the ADA now says that low carb, ketogenic, not ketogenic. They say low carb diet is an accepted treatment for diabetes type 2. I have 15 patients who came off insulin that could tell you that. I don't need the ADA to tell me that, right? And in 13 years of practice before that, never once did I have someone come off insulin. Never once. So when you see it, I can't unsee what I've seen. Just like believers here, it's a huge thing because testimony is everything, guys. You can argue the facts of the Bible. There's atheists who aren't going to believe. But when you say, look, here's my story. I was on drugs. I was him, and now I'm that. He has credibility in my mind, right? And he led his whole family to safety. That's our role as men. This guy, Jeff, 2001, 2013, intervening between that, gastric bypass surgery. 679 pounds. 280 pounds, 2019, on a low-carb ketogenic diet. And to prove I'm not lying to you, that's him. We went to La Jolla. There's no amount of money, guys. This guy said, Doc, I couldn't have gotten in the car. He was here. He had never seen the ocean. He said, I never would have been able to get in your car to get to see the ocean. Now we're hiking around, right? That is powerful. You want to see a miracle? Look at this guy. It's ridiculous. Dr. Ortiz wanted me to put this one in. No, I'm just kidding. This is one of my patients, 80 years old, I talked to him about low carb. I go, hey, man, your sugars are high. You should start thinking about cutting the carbs. 80 years old. He goes, doc, the only problem is I have to drill holes in my belt to keep my pants up. And he showed me. I go, hey, can I take a picture? Yeah, please do. 80 years old. Guys, it's not too late. He's 80 years old. He goes, and I go, what made you do it, man? I forgot I even talked to you about it. And he said, you know what, doc, after you talked to me, I bent over to tie my shoes, and I was out of breath. He said, I've always been a fit guy. What happened? He got insulin resistant. Now guess who's insulin sensitive now, right? And he goes, I'm dirty keto. I mean, he had carbs and fine. If you're okay, you're metabolically healthy, I don't care. So what's wrong with this picture, guys? Arnold Schwarzenegger, steroids, big, huge dude. Look at that belly. Look at their bellies. Why? They want to get as big as they can, so they're gaming the system. They take steroids and get their muscles huge, and they say, oh, well, we'll shove more glycogen into my muscle tissue, insulin. So let me eat a bunch of carbs, and I'm going to shoot insulin and get that into my muscle tissues. Guess what happens when you overshoot that? Why are their bellies big? With a six-pack on top of it, by the way? Why? Because they got fatty liver disease. They've got abdominal fat. We know this is a major risk factor for cardiovascular disease. Not that Dr. Ortiz would take these guys to surgery, but they're a higher surgical risk than Jeff when he was 679 pounds. Why? Jeff never got diabetes. 670. How in the world does someone get 679 pounds and not get diabetes? Because he could keep storing, he had so many fat stores, he can keep doing that. I have 11 guys in my practice less than 160 pounds with type 2 diabetes. Well, I thought you had to be fat to have diabetes. So did I. But you don't. If you don't have any more fat stores to put that in, guess what? Your sugar starts pouring in the bloodstream. You have no way to get rid of it except peeing it out now. There's nowhere to put it, guys. You ran out of storage units. Jeff had a lot of storage units. Now he has all kinds of places he could put fat, right? Endocrine Society. Oh, doctor, this crazy diet's going to kill you. They go, okay, what are the biggest risk factors for you dropping dead of a heart attack? Here we are. Large amounts of abdominal fat, like we showed the guys right before on that picture. Low HDL, which is the good cholesterol. High levels of fat in the blood known as triglycerides. High blood pressure, high sugar. When you have three of these things, you're in trouble, right? You could be skinny arms and legs and have a big belly. Trust me, you're in trouble. It makes me more nervous than a 500-pound guy with normal labs. So, what do we do? What's a keto diet? Decreases abdominal fat, visceral fat. First thing that's going to go is fat around your liver. That is the dangerous fat. You could have fat out here, all this. Your love handles aren't going to kill you. That is in storage. Your body's getting rid of it out of your bloodstream, right? Keto diet increases your HDL. It goes up. Without exception, HDL goes up, and that's a protective cholesterol. Decrease your triglycerides. Triglycerides scare the heck out of me. Before they say, oh, yeah, we can't do anything about that. Don't do it, right? Decreases blood pressure. I've seen guys drop your, there's estimates that at least 90% of hypertension that we're treating with drugs, if you drop your insulin level down, normalizes your blood pressure. And we say, well, stay away from salt. Why? Insulin makes us hold on to salt at our kidneys. So the more salt you hold on to, your blood pressure goes higher. Guess what? You get on a ketogenic diet and we tell you, look, eat salt, because if not, you're going to drop your salt low and you're going to feel like garbage. That's part of this keto flu thing is part of it, other than sugar withdrawals, part of it is being able to say, look, you don't have insulin to hold on to salt anymore. You got to replace more salt because salt hasn't been the demon that we've talked about. It's been the insulin all along, guys. So Keyes, who did these studies that they talked about, was wrong. The guy was flat around. There was another guy named Yudkin who was a quiet, kind, easygoing guy from England, proper. And he said, sugar's the problem. And they fought. And it has to be fat. And they said, okay, it has to be fat. What's your data? I don't know. We just know. He did this study we were talking about before. And some of the countries didn't fit his paradigm. So he said, okay, now instead of 25 or whatever, I'm going to drop it to 18 and just show these countries, right? The more fat you eat. Because really, the more fat you eat generally has been associated with guys who say, I'm going to do what I want to do. I'm going to have my bread, pasta, extra dessert. I'm not listening to the doctors anyway. So those guys are going to be more sick because of all these other factors we talked about. Also decreases blood sugar and insulin. This is the big key. You talk to the world experts they were saying insulin is the killer, and I'll convince you of that pretty quickly. So the Pure trial just came out, 135,000, I think it was last year. 135,000 people all around the world, 18 countries, 7 years, the biggest study of this kind done. Here's their conclusion. And if guys have to leave, I don't want to keep you. Please feel free to leave because we're right ending right now. High carbohydrate intake was associated with a higher risk of total mortality, whereas total fat and individual types of fat were related to lower total mortality. Look, guys, fat didn't make a difference in these guys. And they say it's inversely related with stroke. The more saturated fat you eat, the less likely you're to have a stroke. That's exactly the opposite of what we've been telling everyone. So no one likes this study because it doesn't fit their paradigm. It doesn't fit, right? So these were these studies I stole from a friend of mine, Ira Cummins. I just want to do it really quick. We're almost done. So they looked in Colombia, they looked at people who had heart attacks. And they go, okay, let's look at the numbers and try to figure out why they're having heart attacks. High total cholesterol, 1. That means no difference in the general population. High LDL, bad cholesterol, no different than everyone else in the hospital for other stuff. High blood pressure, doubles your risk. High insulin level, what do I worry about as a doctor? You bet your butt I worry about that. I don't want that. I'd rather sacrifice, have your LDL go a little higher and take care of that insulin level. Because that high insulin level, I'll explain a little bit more about that, but look at this. Your risk of heart attacks. And the women this is one advantage of us guys. This is the only advantage we probably have. But this is your A1C, 3-month sugar average. As it goes up, this is your risk of cardiovascular disease. Your A1C is riding above 7. This is where I get my patients go, guys, look. It's the processed food and sugar. Your A1C 7, there's your risk of heart attack. Females, they can slide a little bit more, but once they get over 6.5, that's your risk of heart attack, right? So this scares me. When I see this, you look at diabetics, depending on the study, 65 to 85 are going to die of a heart attack. Why? Because your sugar's messed up, and I'll show you why. So there's another one from Ivor. Let me borrow this. These are people with low LDL cholesterol. These are above goal LDL based on their readings, right? And this is over 100,000 patients. So guess what? If you have your low triglyceride HDL ratio versus a high triglyceride HDL, meaning that the healthy types of fat, it goes from 9% to 18.5. What's the difference in these guys? Oops. Let me do that. Less insulin resistant, more insulin resistant. The more insulin resistant you are, the bigger your risk of cardiovascular disease. See, it's quiet, and everyone's quiet, like, oh my gosh, what's this guy talking about? This is crazy stuff, right? That's what I thought too. So, guys, this is one time. I'll keep it clean, but bigger truly is better in this case. Because if you have large, fluffy LDL cholesterol floating in your veins, on your arteries and veins and all that stuff, low risk. That's just fluffy stuff floating around. All that. We go, LDL, oh my gosh, LDL. You talk to the world expert, they go, no, it's not LDL necessarily. Our body makes LDL. Guess what? I just had an unbelievable podcast yesterday with a great interventional cardiologist. He goes, Brian, look, the LDL is not the problem by itself. LDL has a role. Where's your testosterone come from, guys? LDL cholesterol. Where does all these sex hormones come from? Where do vitamin D, vitamin K, all these nutritional deficiencies we worry about? LDL cholesterol. So he says, that's not your problem. It's the small, dense, sticky ones. They stick to everything. And I'll explain what I'm talking about a little bit. But what causes it to go from the big, fluffy one? Our body does not make small, dense LDL. It has to get oxidized. Oxidized is like this for us guys to understand. You take a sucker, you take the wrapper off, and you touch the sucker, it's not that sticky. Now you lick it, it's oxidized. Now you touch it, you're going to be sticking to everything. Right? You're going to touch a paper, it's going to stick to your hand. So we're talking about this small, dense LDL. So when I take a statin drug, what does it do? It gets rid of these big ones. Because they're saying, look, we have a terrible diet. Let's try to decrease the raw material that's going to make these. Why don't I say, let's just get rid of this? Let's get rid of the insulin and sugar that's causing that problem, and now you can have a higher LDL without being at cardiovascular risk. We all are scared by that. So these are research. I made a copy of go look at these. Take your time, educate. I could be nuts and just making all this stuff up, right? So look at all these things. Our podcast, exercise, guys, I'm telling you right here, this is groundbreaking. If you have diabetes, insulin resistance, I have no financial interest in Ben Bakikio, but I do his workout, and I'm telling you, I watch my sugars, and it's astounding, and we could talk about it a little bit afterwards if anyone has any questions. If you guys go watch Netflix, The Magic Pill, outstanding. Based on science, actually, not my opinion. It's based on science. And then, and this is all in the handouts in the back, and hopefully they'll put a PDF with this talk. That sugar film, Fat, documented by a friend of mine, Vinny Tortorich, and Big Fat Lie documented. Really, they could use support. They have no industry funding. These guys are paying for it out of pocket because they believe. And that's that one that I'm in that I have no financial interest in it, again, just to disclose that. But I believe in what they're doing. So these are clip notes. If you guys have been sleeping, look at this. Avoid processed foods whenever possible. Eat real food, guys. Cook your own food. Just barbecue on Sunday. That's what I do. I'm busy. I just barbecue on Sunday, and then I have food for the week. I can have salmon if I want. I can have steak, fish, whatever you want. Not everyone has to eat red meat. Vinny Torches is famous for this. He just said no sugar, no grains. He saved millions of lives. I mean, there's people all the time you hear the story of him, right? Avoid seed oils. Use avocado. Use these. Avocado, olive, and coconut oils. No sugary drinks. It's a disaster. We've already discussed that. Alcohol in moderation if you're going to drink. If you have an alcohol problem, don't drink, obviously. Sleep, stress. These are huge factors. Faith, very important, right? Like when my dog died yesterday, my faith came in. The Lord gave me his comfort and peace. And I watched my family heal, right? It's very important. Or I could be mad at the world and upset and go, okay, the world's a terrible place, right? Count your blessings, guys. There's no better medicine than this. This is what we're up against. Thank you guys for listening. Appreciate it. Errol, do you got to run, or can you stay a couple minutes, or you got to take off? Oh, look at that. So we'll have the smart guy. He can answer all these questions. So
check this out.
Hi, Ariel and Brian. Great to see you guys talking about carbohydrates from an addiction perspective with regards to diabetes and obesity. We're slowly learning more and more and educating people. I hope the message resonates. Great to see you guys in front of a large audience.
That's Robert Sideways. He just sent it to us.
Oh, wow. Yeah. Yeah. See, I mean, these guys care. I'm telling you, I kind of made fun of them yesterday because I'm telling you, I have gastric bypass surgeon, orthopedic surgeon. They can make money after money of amputating people's feet. And they go, this isn't right. This is not the way to treat a patient. Interventional cardiologists, they're making tons of money. A world-renowned guy is stepping down going, look, I'm not doing this anymore. I'm going to prevent the problem. Why should I I'm going to prevent you from blowing up your engine. Why do I wait till you blow up your engine? That's why I'm a big believer in getting a fasting insulin, because if you get skinny and have a super high insulin level, you're at major risk of cardiovascular disease, diabetes, all this stuff. I showed you the slide. That's what we're seeing. And it's clinically relevant. So it's not about the weight loss. That's where we've been hijacked. Because everyone said, oh, yeah, eat butter all day and you lose weight. It's not about that. It's about taking the garbage stuff out. If you're not hungry, don't eat. I think intermittent fasting, we have tons of data. People probably heard of autophagy, all these things that fasting is beneficial. The Lord didn't call us to fast to make us weak, stupid, and lazy and to kill us. Doesn't make sense, right? Our body, 80% of your LDL cholesterol is made by your liver. It's made by your body. Why would I make something to kill myself? No, it's in a bad environment. It has a protective role. It's not a bad thing by itself, but we made it bad by adulterating it. Yes? I think the answer is we don't know. I think all of us who are in the low-carb realm, and Doc, if you have a strong answer on that, I think, look, if I quit alcohol and I have O'Doul's all the time, I'm at an increased risk of relapse. If I have iced tea, it takes my mind off that realm. So a lot of people, it just depends. What I recommend, if you say, look, I'm an ice cream addict and I'm freaking out, I can't even do this thing without it, say, have artificial sweeteners for a while. Sugar versus artificial sweeteners, I'll take the artificial sweetener risk way over the, and most of the studies are flawed. I'm not a big believer in artificial sweeteners, but the studies that say it's dangerous, guess who funded it? Sugar. Of course, that's going to hurt their market share. So I think there's a lot of overhype, but I think, again, we're talking like people drink Diet Coke all day. I don't think that's a good thing either, right? It's not a good thing because it's not about the sugar. Diabetes, again, let me just make this point. It's not about the sugar, it's about the insulin. The higher my insulin, I talked to Ben Bickman, he's from BYU, one of the top longevity researchers in the world, metabolic guy, super brilliant. And I go, man, if I want to live a long, healthy life, what do I do? He said, Brian, make your body as sensitive to insulin as you can. How do I do that? Not drinking sugar substitute, because I do. My insulin's, because I'll tell you, I had it happen one time from personal experience. I was super low-carb keto, trying this thing out, seeing if it works, doesn't work. And one day I was tired, post-call, and beat up, and I drink a Diet Coke. That day I was starving all day. Why? I spiked up my body said, oh, sugar's coming, spike up insulin, get rid of it. Our body is brilliant. Having this thing tells me the Lord created us in a way where we are very indestructible if we do it right. So I can fast for a long time. My sugar it's never dropped fasting, ever. Not one time. The only time I've had low sugar in the last 3 weeks is I didn't experiment with a piece of fudge, spiked my sugar up high, right? To 115 for me, that's high in a non-exercise state. Insulin goes up, takes it down. Guess what? It took an hour and something for me to drop back down to my 85 normal. And then guess what? It kept going down to 62. Why? Because my body overreacted. It says, you cannot have sugar. This is toxin. I got to get rid of this and spike me low. Guess what? You get your sugar 62, you're hungry again. Now you want to eat. So it's the same argument. If your goal is weight loss, I can't make an argument where eating a bunch of artificial sweeteners is going to help you. Plus, there's other stuff like people get diarrhea and runs because it's a non-absorbable sugar substitute, sugar alcohol. So I see, for me, if I'm saying, hey, look, eat real food, that's not real food to me, right? Doc, what do you say?
Yeah, carbs create carbs, fat burns fat. So if you got to start using certain rules. Now, something that's
come on up, man.
That I always use with my patients is that, and with you guys, forget about humans. Let's look at animals. You ever heard of diabetic mammals? No. And then I get my patients, well, my dog's diabetic. Yeah, but you feed them. When they feed in nature, they feed naturally, They don't get the diseases we get. They don't die of heart attacks. They don't get diabetes. You're not measuring their cholesterol. Why? Because nature has made it so that that doesn't happen. What has happened over time is that the new normal for us is food comes in a bag, in a box, in a can, etc. And that's not normal. Food doesn't have ingredients. Food is food. Food, the more virgin the food is, the better it is for you. So when you look at stuff that's in a bag, in a box, in a can, now you've got, if it has more than 3 ingredients, it's going to have carbs in it. From corn,
and
soy.
I challenge you guys, right? I challenge you. Look at the Impossible Burger. Look at the ingredients in that thing. I wouldn't feed it. Well, I still have one dog left. I wouldn't feed it to my dog. I wouldn't. I look at the ingredients. Soy, process this, blah, 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 blah. It's a science experiment. Really? You're going to eat that and think it's healthy? If your goal is to save the planet, if you can want to take it from that standpoint, that argument's not going to work either, by the way. But from a health standpoint, zero justification. Zero.
And with that sugar stuff, we were saying with the sweeteners, sugar is not natural. The sugar that you see, it's not natural. It's a processed substance, highly processed. So if you like sweetness, go with the one that's most directly associated to a natural extract, which is stevia. At least that's a plant. I grow it at the house. I pull it. I chomp on it, and it's sweet.
Yeah.
Honey is full of carbs. Now, in nature, carbs are very difficult to access. For instance, honey. In nature, only the bears will screw around with it, and a little bit because they're going to get stung. There's a reason why nature.
Plus, they're trying to get fat so that they can hibernate. They get fat. They eat all kinds of stuff, and they get fat. Then they come out. They don't get weak and tired because they've been fasting all that time. Right? Their body's burning their fat. They store the fat. Guess what we do? Store fat, store fat, store fat, because we're afraid of if we don't eat in 2 hours. Guess what? Why do we store fat? It's an energy source to use, just like the bears do. Everything in nature does that. Like a lion doesn't jog. Lion sits there and just conserves its energy, waits for some weak-looking animal to come out and goes and kills it. And then it eats it. Then it eats in 4 or 5 days or 3 days, whatever lions do. They don't eat every 2 hours to keep their metabolic rate going. Like nature, look at nature. I mean, when you start understanding, you go, this just doesn't, what we've been told doesn't make sense. The cavemen, these guys were, eating every 2 hours. They were stopping by Walmart and grabbing something to eat. Doesn't make any sense. The farmers would eat a huge breakfast. They work, they're going to stop every 2 hours and eat and turn off the machines and do all this stuff. It just doesn't make any sense. Logically, it doesn't make sense. And we're getting fatter and we're getting sicker, and that's what we're seeing. That's why this is so important.
I had a question for the man here. Don't you know your bodies are a temple of the Holy Spirit, which is in you from God? You're not your own. And what they're saying, just think about it logically, because we're conforming to the pattern of the world. The world is feeding us Kool-Aid, and we're sipping the Kool-Aid. I think of it like that. And it's all for monetary profit for the big companies. And we're buying into it. Everything that we're hearing here is so fundamental, but we're still sipping the Kool-Aid. Be transformed by the renewing of your mind. So why? So that we'll know God's will. Is God's will for us to be unhealthy, depressed, pissed off at our wives because we're not getting our fix?
And you feel ashamed. You don't want to do ministry because you go, I have a big gut. No one's going to listen. But the Lord called me to do this. I'm like, I'm an overweight guy. You're going to call me to do it. Really? Lord, this is kind of a joke. But the Lord has opened up door after door after door, right? And when you start seeing like a guy like this, said, look, if all you guys get healthy, he's hurting his own livelihood. He could do surgery hour after hour and never stop, and he's not going to get to the bottom of it. He said, unless we reach the people, we can't help them. We can help a few people, but we can't help them.
We had a breakfast today, and I wanted to end by saying we had breakfast. Let's have a fast. My brother Paul, who's here, who's one of my accountability partners, has been talking to me about this. And I've been already thinking about it because I fast on a daily basis. Let's have a fast, a men's fast, instead of a big breakfast, right? We just had breakfast and it was great. Nothing wrong with it. But let's get together and let's have a fast. Let's grow closer to God. Let's hear what God has to say about what's going on in our lives. Let's draw near to him.
Thank you. Yes.
Can you recommend supplements? What do you think about
Yeah. Oh, so the question is, what do I think of supplements? You know, if you look at all the studies, women's health study, all these studies show, look, taking a multivitamin doesn't help you. Doesn't make a difference. You can take it for 50 years. It didn't make a difference in cancer, heart attacks, all this kind of stuff. So the biggest thing you can do is have a healthy diet. Now, if you have a lot of disease already from being in poor health for a long time, you have a high coronary calcium score, there is data saying, look, vitamin K2, vitamin D3 help block some of that conversion that I was talking about from the big fluffy. I want to have big fluffy LDL. I don't care about my big fluffy LDLs. I don't want the small dense stuff. Ketogenic diet, a statin drug doesn't affect the small dense LDL. It affects the big one that doesn't cause heart disease. But it's in a bad environment, right? So I want to block that conversion for me. So I personally take K2, D3. I take some things that make me a little bit more insulin sensitive because I am majorly insulin resistant. If I eat carbs, I gain weight like crazy. Now, I want to give you guys, look, it's not everyone has to eat no carbs. It's not that the carbs are the devil. Some people are physiologically, 1/3 of people are born metabolically healthy. 2/3 of us have issues, right, to start with. Now you keep eating donuts and cakes. Now you become, I have 2 brothers who with type 2 diabetes. They gave me permission to talk about it. One drinks a lot of wine at night, fatty liver disease, diabetes, weighs 160 pounds, works out every day. My other brother, skinny his whole life, so he can eat whatever. We used to laugh. He'd eat a whole box of Oreos. I'm like, man, I would be dead if I ate that. Then he develops type 2 diabetes. Why? Because of his diet. Now he changed his diet, diabetes goes away. This is not a chronic progressive disease, guys. That's why it's so frustrating, because you think, dad had diabetes, mom had diabetes, mom's going to get diabetes. No, it's not a foregone conclusion. I was in the pre-diabetic range two years ago. My A1C was 5.9, 6.5 is diabetes. I'm down to 4 point something now. It's a joke. I have all kinds of room to go. If I go on a binger for a month, I can't get diabetes. I mean, you can, but you know, hopefully your body gets more fat adapted. So that's why the skinny girls can eat whatever they want, because they're insulin sensitive. This is the key. It's not about the calories, because they can eat a ton of calories and not gain weight temporarily. Over time, they're going to start gaining weight again because they get insulin resistant. That's just the way it is.
Now, the worry is not getting diabetes, because you guys are like, well, diabetes. Let's put it in another way. This is a disease of insulin. The more insulin resistant you are, the more your blood sugars are going to spike, and that could be subclinical. In other words, you're not going to know. It's called pre-diabetes, right? The concept is kind of like, mommy, I'm kind of pregnant.
Yeah.
Either you are or you aren't. So if 9 out of 10 people are metabolically affected in the US and in Mexico and the leading countries, then that means that 9 out of 10 people are easily going to develop diabetes. Now, if you're still subclinical, you're still having the vascular damage, which means that you are going to have a heart attack. The incidence of cancer is going to triple if you have higher insulin. So when you look at 50, 60-year-old guys, because we got it bad, and they're dying of heart attacks, of cancer, and or they're having vascular disease, limbs, brain, etc., it's all because of that insulin. And how can you stop that insulin from secreting constantly? Well, there's things that can cure it. Complete fasting, but it's incompatible with life so far. So
Yeah.
intermittent is somewhat better. Weight loss surgery actually does the trick, but I'm not going to just do surgery. I give patients a tool, but I also want to teach them. I want to give them the resources to understand, yeah, it's the amount of carbs that we've been tricked into eating because we think it's normal. And last but not least, it's getting them back to basics. If you can recognize the food in your plate, where it came from. Oh, that's a protein from a cow. That is a leaf from a whatever. It's better for you. So the more integral the food is, the better it is for you.
Yeah, and I tease them because we're not at odds with each other. Because I'm saying, look, let's put this guy out of business. Here's the deal. If someone is going to get a gastric bypass or a band or what, you're going to be so much better off if you get your metabolic health, because guess what? With that high insulin level, your chance of dying on the table goes up immensely. Some people, it's a benefit. It's like Rob Seibus says, it's the best tool for weight loss is getting a band, all that stuff. But if you don't change the underlying pathology, you're in trouble. So if I could get his patients for 3 months before he gets them, guess what? Some of those patients are not going to get surgery, but the ones who do are not going to have these struggles with depression and anxiety, because their drug of choice was taken away 3 months ago. It wasn't taken, because Rob says, the day I do surgery, I'm killing your best friend, right? Because your best friend is the carbs and cookies and soda. You can't do that anymore after a gastric bypass. You're forced. You have no choice, or banding. So your stomach's this big, you can't go eat a dozen donuts, right? And one of the important for us, and this is an important take-home message, because a lot of people say, well, you're going to cause eating disorders if you take all this stuff away. And look, the problem is if someone's going to binge on food, how many people do you know that go, okay, I had a stressful day. When I get home, I'm going to hammer out all kinds of broccoli. I'm going to eat spinach until I throw up. No one does that, right? Even steak. You can eat enough steak and you could be as macho as you want, but you cannot. So, and again, the way this ties into us as guys, look, I say, knowing what I know, there's only two things that will keep me from doing a low-carb diet. One, pride. Say, I've been doing this all, I don't care what they say, I'm going to do what I'm going to do. Okay, good. Pride's killing us. Us guys are not very good at that level. And the other thing is, I don't want to give up these things. The Christian walk, guys, so many guys aren't Christian. They're outside. They're not here because they go, I'm not giving up porn. I'm not giving up this. I'll give up this, and I won't fight with my wife. And right? We make deals and go, okay, I'm not giving up this, but you want to have a good spiritual walk, give up all that garbage that's killing you. You want to have a good nutrition, give up the garbage that's killing. Get off the couch, go for a walk. Take your wife for a walk around the block. Do something, take your dog out. Do something that's constructive and positive. You sit there and watch TV, guess what? If you fast for 3 hours before you go to bed, you will lose weight. Why? You prolong your fast. You have to burn fat while you're sleeping. You're fasting for all night anyways. No one dies in the middle of the night from starvation, right? All right? So do something. Occupy yourself. Stay active. Because that snack, and I know myself, man, I'm sitting there watching something. I go, oh, what's in the fridge? Let me see. I'll eat something healthy, but I may make a healthier choice. But realize, guys, there's a big study that just came out, again, saying what we did. They go, okay, look, we have diabetics. We're going to put them on 2,000 calories a day, 5 meals a day versus 3 meals a day. Guess what? They were wrong from their premise. They go, look, people eat 3 times a day, better sugar control, better weight loss, felt more satiety, eating 3 meals, the same amount of calories. So if a calorie is a calorie, there should be no difference between those two groups because they weren't spiking their insulin 5 times a day. They were only spiking their insulin 3 times a day. See? So they've been wrong about eating 5 times a day. They've been wrong that you're going to shut your metabolic rate and go into starvation mode. It's just not true. Yes?
I went on that trip with Dave Hoffman to Italy, and one night we had pizza. So I just scraped off the cheese and didn't eat the underlying bread.
Yeah, and people think you're crazy, right?
Yeah. Well, nobody thought I was. My wife knew what I was doing.
Yeah, because you're better off doing that. And then, Gary Taubes, who's a great guy in the low carb, and he took all these guys took a lot of heat. Trust me, it's not a path you want to go down and have a peaceful life, right? Just like the Christian walk. But he's out with his buddies, they're eating all this bread and stuff. So he grabs the butter and puts a little thing of butter and starts eating the butter. They're like, oh my gosh, you're going to kill yourself. And he said, do you think the bread's protecting you from the effects of the butter that you're putting on more than I'm eating right now? Right? Logically, it doesn't make any sense. It's gross to just eat butter, I agree. But health-wise, do you think you're protected by the bread? Right? The nutrition goes, I eat bread sometimes. I go for nutrition. She goes, no, not for nutrition. Of course not. It's ridiculous. But I like bread. Okay, if you like bread, have bread. It's not, what I'm getting at is, guys, look, it's a stepwise approach. At least you could say, okay, let me get rid of the soda. Let me get rid of the orange juice, purified sugar, fructose, which is the number one cause of liver disease now, all these things. And, and when you hear the science and the data, it is, when his friend Rob Sivas started talking, I'm like, this guy's an idiot, right? He goes, yeah, he's a gastric bypass or a bariatric surgeon. And he goes, I don't do surgery on people with fatty liver disease. I'm thinking, this guy's an idiot. Every single patient that comes to him has fatty liver disease. I go, Rob, you have obese, diabetic patients, they all have fat. It's a precursor to diabetes. This is the precursor. And he goes, yeah, we just resolve it and then do surgery. I go, how long does that take? A week, max. A week, max. Number one cause of cirrhosis in the world, and everyone laughed, like, this is ridiculous talk. He goes, we have pre, post, biopsy, ultrasound, look, pre and post, gone. He says, probably shorter than that, but we don't look again for a week. Ketogenic diet for 5 days. What? You're on a ketogenic diet. You're not putting fructose into your system, so your body has to burn the fatty liver to stay alive. Then he fasts for 2 days just to make sure. He goes, most people could fast for 2 days and knock out their fatty liver. So the point is, the church where we've been messed up big time is you're eating a high-carb diet, your insulin's through the roof, so now you're going to try to fast on Monday. Guess what? You're going to be stinking miserable. I would not eat a high-carb diet and then try fasting. It's ridiculous. It's crazy because your body's going to be starving and you're going to be miserable and you're not going to be seeking the Lord. But if you're fat adapted, guess what? Does my body care whether I burn the fat around my liver right now or butter? It doesn't care as long as it has energy. My body wants to have energy to go do stuff. So it doesn't care. It's like, this is coming from here, so it's not good. No, it doesn't matter. As long as it has energy, it's going to run.
And one more thing, fat has 3 times more energy than carbs, by the way. So if you want to run on a good fuel, fat is king.
And let me tell you one more thing on that along those lines, because this is where the calorie model, the calories in, calories out gets destroyed. They've done studies with people. They've put prisoners on 10,000 calories a day, and they're like controlling their exercise level. And they go, okay, 10,000 calories a day, they're going to gain this much weight by the end of the study. Guess what? They didn't gain anything close to that. Probably 2/3 less than what they estimated. Weird. Then they say, okay, we're going to put them on a starvation diet and see what happens. Guess what? They didn't lose as much weight as they should have. They go, that doesn't make sense either. Why? Because it's not all about the calories. Because if I take any guy, us guys understand finances. So I take someone and go, hey, you know what? You're a nice guy. I'm going to double your salary for the next year. Then you're like, you know what? Those shoes I wanted, I can go get that boat. Maybe I'll pick up that boat. Because you have money to spend. Now you're going to spend money frivolously. If you have a ton of energy, you're going to spend it frivolously. If I say, okay, your pay is cut in half, right? You have to get rid of cable. You got to get rid of stuff. Your body says, look, I can't function like this forever on 500 calories. Another, from the metabolic standpoint, that's interesting along those lines is I asked this lady who's measuring metabolic rates on all these people. Like, okay, if someone's ticking along, they're doing great, and all of a sudden their metabolic rate drops, what do you ask them? How's your sleep? What are you stressed about? She goes, 90% of the time, that's the answer. Number 3, are you exercising? Next, how many carbs are you eating? Stress has a huge factor on this, and sleep has a huge factor in this stuff, too. So then I said, well, you can either take, if I want to lose weight and I want to take in 2,000 calories a day, or 1,000 calories a day, I want to cut down to 1,000. So if I go 1,000 calories every day, or 2,000 calories every other day, and she started laughing, she says, no question about it. 2,000 calories every other day, your metabolic rate does not budge, because your body can deal with that. But when you get this prolonged 1,000 calories, when your body needs more, you go, oh, I'm starving. Stop that, right? And if you're not exercising, there's studies showing that if you exercise, even on a calorie-restricted diet, your body says, you're trying to kill something, so I'll free up some more energy, let you kill some. That's what my body's doing right now. I didn't have breakfast, right? I don't eat breakfast generally. So my body's running on that. So I have energy to go kill something. If my body shut down and went into starvation mode, we'd all be dead. None of us would be sitting here, right? The cavemen didn't eat all the time. When they didn't eat, their body freed up fat. They stored the fat, just like a lion does. He stores his fat, then he uses his energy source. He doesn't eat every 2 hours because he's going to run out of energy. It doesn't happen. In the wild, in captivity, they get fat. Why? Because we give them Purina chow for the right? Have you ever seen it's so funny to me, because have you ever seen a cat get a bird, they kill it, and then they go, okay, I'm going to go cook this up, and then we'll get some spinach on the side? They kill the bird and eat it. We're trying to put our values on them. Now they have people making their cats vegan, right? My dog, who just passed away, had diabetes. Why? Because we gave her kibble, because that's what the people said. Kibble killed her, because she got diabetes. We're shooting our dog with insulin, right, all the time, because she's got diabetes. We put her on a carnivore diet, meaning we get a bunch of chicken cheap, cook it up. Her insulin dropped. Like, she was on 35 units twice a day, and then before she passed away, she was on tiny doses, and her sugars were normal. She dropped her insulin because she didn't need insulin to get rid of the kibble anymore. The kibble was gone. It's common sense when you look at it, and the vet goes, diet doesn't make any difference in diabetes. Come on. Look at my patients. Look around. Look at what these guys are talking about. Look at the data. Not what people tell you. Look at the data, So you have resources back there and if you want to know about cholesterol, I'm telling you this for me as a doc doing this forever, you look at Malcolm Kendrick on the Fat Emperor podcast. Unbelievable what this guy's data is and what he's showing, because he goes, look, I just want to leave you guys with this, because this is really important. He said, what disease process in the history of man causes atherosclerosis in someone with 0 risk factors? The number one is sickle cell anemia, because all the red blood cells get messed up. It messes up the lining of the blood vessels. Now your cholesterol, these kids are 14 years old having heart attacks and strokes and they don't have high cholesterol. If cholesterol is a problem, all those guys should be fine. They don't have high cholesterol, they have normal cholesterol. So it's the damage to the endothelium. That is where science is going. This is what everything tells us. Diabetes damages the endothelium, and it gives the cholesterol. His friend Rob, I could tell you study after study, but you look at it, and they tried to induce atherosclerosis. They tried to cause fatty liver disease. They pumped fat into the vessels of these rabbits. I think they were rabbits. And they couldn't cause heart disease or fatty liver disease. Someone goes, you know what? In China, we give sugar, and it causes fatty liver disease in the duck, so we get foie gras. It's sugar that causes the fatty liver disease. It wasn't ever the fat. So once they put sugar in there, and then they see atherosclerosis, fatty liver disease, all this stuff. And we say fat's the problem. Guess what, guys? You got to look at the science and the data. Yeah? Yes?
Can inflammation from the epithelium can be reversed just like fatty liver, or is that once you have that?
Reversible.
It is?
Once the damage is done, you want to protect your endothelium, and that's what I'm telling you. Protect your endothelium. You don't want to get, there's something there's something called a glycocalyx. I never heard of it until a year ago. Glycocalyx is a layer around the inside of the blood vessels, which is protective. It's the same thing as a fish has when you grab the fish. It slips out of your hand. It has slime on it, and that slime is protective. It keeps the fish from getting diseases and all this stuff in its skin and under the scales and all that stuff. So we go and destroy our glycocalyx. What destroys that? Smoking, right? Toxins, sugar, insulin, all those things that destroy it cause a problem. Now you get rid of that layer and you're in trouble. What helps it? Believe it or not, statin drugs do increase nitric oxide, which is protective of that layer, right? That's probably why it's not the LDL lowering that effect. It's probably that effect. How else can I do it? Low carbohydrate diet, because I have less damage to endothelium. And then, we've been snowed so bad. You look at pomegranate juice. They go, it's antioxidant. You have this much antioxidant, this much sugar. Sugar is the biggest pro-oxidant we have. You want to have inflammation go down? Cut your sugar out. I see it as, I'll tell you one story. One of my patients, super non-compliant, A1C, 3-month sugar average, 8.9. Wants left knee replacement surgery. She's miserable. She goes, doc, please. And I go, your sugar's 8.9? I cannot. Your 3-month sugar average, 8.9 is a disaster waiting to infect your high sugar is a disaster waiting to happen. I can't clear you. And I go, I'll tell you what. Do low-carb keto for 6 weeks. You come back. If you have it less than 8, I'll clear you for surgery. She comes back. Hey, doc, 16 pounds down, right? And I'm like, oh, my gosh. A1C, 6.2. 6.2 from 8.9. That, you guys may not understand what that means. That is below the diabetes range. And she was like, I couldn't clear. She comes in, and I said, oh my gosh. She goes, I lost this much weight. She goes, look at my blood pressure. Oh yeah, let's take out blood pressure medicines, 2 diabetes medicines. And I said, well, I can clear you for surgery. She's like, my knee doesn't hurt anymore. My knee doesn't hurt anymore. I don't think I need surgery. There's no hurry now. She's, why? And I tell Ben Bickman, this world-class researcher who's one of the best guys in the world from BYU, and he goes, Brian, you should expect that. Because the chondrocytes that help with inflammation in the knee and all that, they can't work in a high-sugar environment. That's an expected side effect. It's like when we're amazed when there's answer to prayer, and people who have a lot of faith go, yeah, you should expect that. That's normal. Why were you so amazed by that, right? You should expect. He goes, you should expect that. He goes, inflammation. He goes to one thing after another. It's a great podcast. Oh, you listen to it, So you kind of see that. And what he did, Ben Bickman, said, guys, we're seeing all this stuff. He got a doctor, and the doctor's like, oh my gosh, cholesterol. No, I can't do this. And they go, look, here's 20 studies showing, don't worry about it, right? And so he goes, okay, I'll do it. So they get a doc who, the next 11 patient he gets diagnosed with diabetes with A1C on average, 8.9, super high like my patient. They said, you're going to meet at a gym once a week, and we're going to put you on a low-carb diet. And so, so at the end of the study, A1C was like 6.2, 6.3 with no drugs. Or I could give you drugs. Which one do you want? I'll take this path. All those people, average weight loss, 20 pounds, blood pressure normalized, mood better, all this stuff that we're talking about right now. And I said, well, what exercise were they doing? He said, we didn't want to mess up the study. We didn't do any exercise. So you add exercise on top of that, and you have a killer combination, right? Because exercise makes you more insulin sensitive. Ben's saying, look, be as insulin sensitive as you can. You get rid of this mid-gut, you get rid of this, those are the things that decrease you. So you want to talk about cardiovascular risk, the Endocrine Society, we're all saying the same thing, but we're focusing on the wrong, because I have a drug that I can give you for LDL. I don't have something that I can give you. It's not the magic pill. Another one really quickly, a kid that I met, 128 units of insulin a year ago. He went carnivore. Type 1 diabetic, makes no insulin. Now, and he's doing this Ben's workout that we talk about, and his A1C is 5.2, it was 8.9. His eye doctor looked at him and said, look, who's your doctor? The guy's malpractice on you. Because he's telling you, eat all the sugar you want, I'll just give you, sin all you want, and then you pay your money, and then you're forgiven, right? But the point is, that's basically what we do. That's what we do in medicine. We go, hey, you don't want to change your lifestyle so hard. Here, we'll just give you insulin, we'll give you this. All we just keep adding on. Rob says this, it's like a factory is polluting the river. And I could hire more and more people to clean the river, or I could turn off the factory. The factory is the sugar and the processed garbage is coming in your body. Turn that off. Now I don't have to give you drugs to get rid of it, right?
I know he doesn't really look like an expert, but believe me, guys.
I know, yeah.
God put him here in this ministry with you guys to send a message. It is also a message of hope, because at the end of the day, what our calling has always been to serve, and we've been put in this ministry of healing. And this is counterintuitive. Of all the physicians, researchers, et cetera, in the world, what we are doing, what we believe in, is still counterintuitive, and we're going against the stream. We're going against the grain. It's so difficult to convince people of this, scientists, including physicians, where all the data is already pointing towards we being correct, treating diabetes with food. And doctors are like, no, that can't be. There's never been in the history of diabetes one single patient that got better with medication or insulin. And now we're curing it with food. So basically, I got to go, man.
Yeah, thank you so much, man. Hey, everyone give him a hand, man. This guy's awesome.
This guy.
What a blessing, man. What a blessing. Super awesome, man.
This guy knows more than anybody, because he's put them all together in this podcast, and he's made friends with all of them, and he's got them all inside his brain. So ask him, because this guy knows, man.
Man, coming from the man, that's awesome. Ariel, thank you so much, man. Thanks for coming.
Thank you, guys. God bless.
And we'll talk.
Okay.
What a blessing, man. Thank you for sticking with us. He's like me, man. He's gonna be in trouble for running that. Yes.
Yeah. So something was mentioned just a few minutes ago.
Yeah, it's going to be a controversial topic. I was just on a national thing talking about that, and we have a difference of opinion. So my personal experience, and not my personal only, but there's a guy named Longo from USC where I trained. They're talking about fasting and ketogenic, and he's, these things sometimes get commercialized because there's a benefit, and they go, okay, now I'm going to sell you this. I say go eat steak, go eat chicken, fish, eat real food, take the processed garbage out. We do know that sugar for a lot of cancers, not all, and I'm not an oncologist and I'm not an expert in this area, but we know a lot of these if you're obese, your chance of all these cancers go up. They all tie to high insulin levels. So if I can control your insulin level, a personal story, my wife's best friend got diagnosed with metastatic breast cancer all over her body. She has to go through chemotherapy, go through radiation. I'm like, I don't want to stress you out, but I would think about trying a ketogenic diet in your case. Why? Because when I do a PET scan on someone with cancer, what do? I fast you overnight, and I shoot you with sugar tagged, right, with dye. Where does the dye go? To the cancer. And I can say, yeah, there's cancer here, 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 because it lights up. The sugar takes it to the cancer and feeds it. So I say, well, if I'm going through chemotherapy, I want to target, I don't want chemo to make my hair and everything else fall out, the fast-growing cells. It's going after fast-growing cells. That's what we do with chemotherapy. So it says, if I'm in a ketogenic state going to that chemotherapy, it targets the cancer cells, and my other cells are running on ketones. Cancer cells aren't that smart. They're dumb, and they're just dividing like crazy. So let those dumb guys take up the sugar and then send the chemo to them and let them kill it with that sugar, right? So does that work for all cancers? No, there are some cancers that may not respond to all that stuff, but what I do know is she was ketogenic going into her chemotherapy. She read up and studied herself. I said, I can't give you medical advice. You're not my patient, but look. So she does it. My wife took her to the appointments, right, to her chemo on Monday, and then every Monday she had chemo. The doctor goes, gosh, I feel terrible. I know what happens. All week you've been throwing up and feeling miserable. You start feeling better on Sunday, and I give you poison again to kill this cancer on Monday. And she said, no, doc, I felt bad on Monday. Tuesday, I woke up and worked in the garden. I did this. And he started laughing. He said, yeah, right? He doesn't believe it. He's been doing this for 35 years. He's never seen that. No one's ever done this. So she said, no, I feel great. I haven't thrown up. I haven't had this one. And so she did great. And he didn't believe. He looked at my wife and said, is that true? And he called her husband, is that true? You live with her? Is that true? He goes, yeah, she's doing fine. He goes, that's very toxic stuff. So she ended up passing from her disease, so it's not a cure, obviously. But the point was, she went through treatment way better than the doctor was blown away. Because if you target that cell and you eat healthy food, you don't need all these supplements, you don't need all this other stuff, right? So it's controversial because the reason it's controversial, if I'm going through chemotherapy, I don't want to lose weight, right? But if I'm losing fat weight versus muscle mass is what it is. With old people, we give them, and there's companies now working on this because we give them soy, all this terrible stuff to try to make them fat, right? It's never prolonged survival. It's never done anything really to help the people. It probably makes them worse. Someone has a stroke, we shoot them with IV fluids full of sugar, right? What we do in the hospital makes zero sense from this standpoint, guys. It makes zero sense. I have a diabetic. As a matter of fact, this lady who I told you about, her sugars were out of control. She's on medicines, she's not watching her diet. Anyways, her sugars are kind of high. She goes in the hospital, and we're afraid of those medicines because they can cause problems in the hospital. So they said, sliding scale insulin. We're going to give you a sliding scale insulin. Whenever your sugars go up, we give you insulin, right? So what do we give them for breakfast? Orange juice, cereal, milk. Like on that handout, you guys will see how much sugar is in that stuff. So I give you a bunch of sugar, now I give you insulin to get rid of it. She was never on insulin. Then she became insulin dependent after that, right? Because now she's insulin resistant. Now she needs more and more insulin to get the same effect. It's the same thing as alcohol. If you drink 10 beers a night and you come to me and go, Doc, I can't get drunk and I'm drinking 10 beers a night, my choice is to say, okay, you want to get drunk? Okay, let's go to 12, 14, 16, 20. Or I say, man, 10 beers a night is not good for you. Why don't you cut it out for 2 or 3 weeks? You go out with your wife and you have 1 beer and you're done. You don't need 10. You get the effect you want. This is what we're talking about with insulin sensitivity. That's what we're talking about with ketogenic diet. That's what we're talking about with intermittent fasting, right? Because your body can run on its fat stores, and it's going to run more efficiently in those cases. So until we have really good stuff to have really good high fat and protein, getting rid of all the garbage while you're going through chemotherapy, I think that's the way of the future. That's my opinion, and I know people working on that because it's a big problem. Because if you have a stroke, you have inflammation in your brain. I give you sugar water in your veins, guess what? Inflammation goes up in your brain. We want that inflammation to go down so you can heal, right? So head trauma, there's studies going on with the military guys who get blown up, and they're doing better on a lower carbohydrate diet. The Navy SEALs using low carbohydrate. Why? If I'm fat adapted and I'm laying out in the field, I can go days without eating, and my body can run on fat stores. Zach Bitter, who I showed you, that guy's skinny as a rail, and he can run on his fat stores still. So us guys who weigh 300 pounds can't use our fat as energy. We can't until we're fat adapted, and that's the point. It's not the point of eating fat all day long. It's about eating a healthy diet where your body can tap into its own fat stores, right? That's what it's about. being satiety. Having a steak and being not hungry is way better than eating nachos and Doritos all day, right? Because you're never going to be satisfied. It's the same thing as, from the Christian walk perspective, It's like all these things in the world are not going to satisfy like having the Holy Spirit on you, about having fellowship and having guys who love you and care about you. That's going to be way more medicine than, drowning your sorrows in alcohol every day, right? That's what us as men, that's what's important. That's why I'm giving this talk. It's not about losing weight and saying, okay, I'm going to be sexy and have big muscles. It's not about that, right? If I get somebody to lose 200 pounds, they die of a heart attack, it's like, that's senseless, right? I'm not going to have any patience if that happens. So you have to look at the big picture. And my job as a doctor is to say, look, here's the risk, here's the benefit, here's what we're going at, right? Do we have long-term studies? No, we don't. So to say you're never going to have a heart attack, I don't know. But I do check coronary calciums to make sure there's no disease. I check a fasting insulin because I'm surprised all the time. I see a guy and like insulin's through the roof. And I can predict they're going to get diabetes. I've seen it. I've done it. I've seen it. I go, oh, you're in trouble, man. You better change. It's like a check engine light, right? That high insulin level. So do you guys have to get out of here? I don't want to, we could just, yeah. So, yeah, if anyone has questions, I'm around. I don't want to keep everyone here. But yeah, it's really important. I think it's important to ask questions and research and look for yourself. Just like when I see a sermon, I go and look at the Bible and say, is this true or not true? Yeah, it's true. Our pastors are great, man. So thank you guys all. Thank you.